"Mom has dementia," my son told the banker. I was standing right behind him. "My mother has dementia, early stages, but it's progressing. That's why we need to add me to the account for her protection." Those words stopped me cold in the middle of First National Bank. I was 15 feet from the manager's desk, just coming back from the restroom. My sensible shoes made no sound on the marble floor. My son Kevin didn't hear me approach. He didn't see me standing there, frozen like a statue, listening to him describe a disease I don't have to a stranger. He leaned forward in his chair, all concern and sincerity. His voice carried that particular tone I'd come to recognize over the past 8 months. The tone of a man explaining something unfortunate but necessary. The tone of someone managing a difficult situation with patience and grace. "She's been showing signs for about a year now," he continued, repeating stories, forgetting appointments, getting confused about simple things. "You know how it is with the elderly." The elderly. He said it like I was already gone, like I was a problem to be managed rather than a person to be respected, like 77 years of living had erased everything I was. "My name is Dorothy Peterson. I'm 77 years old. I taught high school mathematics for 41 years at Jefferson High in the suburbs of Atlanta. I can still recite the quadratic formula forwards and backwards. I can tell you that pi to 12 decimal places is 3.14, 159, 26, 53, 589. I remember every phone number I've ever memorized, every student's birthday, every parent conference I ever attended. I remember the exact date Harold proposed to me, September 14th, 1967. I remember the exact weight of each of my children when they were born. Kevin was 7 pounds, 4 ounces. Linda was 6 pounds, 11 ounces. My mind is sharp as a tack, always has been, always will be. But standing in that bank lobby, watching my son lean forward confidentially toward the manager, watching him nod with manufactured sympathy, I felt something crack inside my chest. The bank manager was nodding along, taking notes on his computer. Professional, sympathetic. Another sad case of an elderly parent declining while their devoted children tried to help. And then something happened that changed everything. He looked up. His eyes met mine across that gleaming lobby, and I watched recognition bloom across his face. Thomas Hendricks. I taught his 3 children at Jefferson High. His daughter Emily had been failing trigonometry back in 1993. She'd come to my classroom every Tuesday and Thursday after school for 3 months. Free tutoring, because that's what teachers did back then. That's what I did for any student who needed help. Emily Hendricks struggled with spatial reasoning, couldn't visualize the relationships between angles and sides. I taught her to see it differently, to think of triangles as stories with rules, and once she understood the rules, the stories made sense. She went from a D- to a B+. She got into Georgia State on scholarship. She's now a senior engineer at Boeing, designing aircraft components that keep thousands of people safe in the air every single day. She sends me Christmas cards every year with pictures of her own children now, 2 girls and a boy. Thomas's expression shifted, just slightly, just enough for me to catch it. His eyes moved from me to Kevin and back again. I saw the calculation happening behind his professional mask, the recognition, the understanding. A silent question passed between us. I gave him the smallest nod. He knew exactly who I was. He knew my mind was sharp enough to solve differential equations before breakfast. He knew I'd spent 41 years teaching students to think clearly, to question assumptions, to never accept easy answers. And now he knew exactly what my son was doing. I could have marched over there, could have made a scene, could have grabbed Kevin by the collar of his expensive shirt and demanded to know what the hell he thought he was doing. Lord knows, a part of me wanted to, but 41 years of teaching teenagers had taught me something about strategic patience. Something about timing, something about letting people reveal themselves fully before you respond. Sometimes you don't interrupt someone when they're busy digging their own grave. Sometimes you let them keep shoveling until they're standing 6 feet deep. So I waited, let the moment pass, compose my face into something neutral, maybe slightly confused, played the part my son expected me to play. Then I walked forward, my sensible shoes finally making noise on the marble. Kevin spun around. His face went through 3 expressions in rapid succession: surprise, guilt, recovery. The recovery was the most disturbing. How quickly he assembled that mask of loving concern. How smoothly he shifted from conspirator to caregiver. Mom, you're back. He stood, reaching for my arm like I might topple over at any moment. I was just explaining to Mr. Hendricks here about adding me to your account. Remember? We talked about this. He spoke slowly, loudly, like I was hard of hearing, like I was stupid. I've had perfect hearing my entire life. Perfect. I could hear a student whispering in the back row from 20 feet away. I could hear Harold's car pull into the driveway from the kitchen. I could hear the coffee machine beep from upstairs. But Kevin had started doing this about 8 months ago, speaking to me like I was a child who couldn't quite grasp adult conversations, repeating things, using small words, treating me like I was already half gone. Of course I remember, dear, I said mildly. Thomas Hendricks stood from his desk. His face was professionally neutral now, but I caught the slight tightening around his eyes. The man was a banker, trained to hide his reactions, but he was also a father. A father who'd once sat across from me at parent-teacher conferences, worried about his daughter's future, a father who'd seen what good teaching could do. And he'd just watched someone try to manipulate the woman who'd saved his daughter's academic career. Mrs. Peterson, Thomas said, his voice warm but careful. Wonderful to see you again. I was just telling your son that we'll need some additional documentation for this type of account change. New bank policies, you understand. I'm afraid we can't complete this today. Kevin's jaw tightened. I saw the muscle jump near his ear. A tell. I'd seen that same tell when he was 16 and lying about where he'd been on Saturday night. Some things never change. What kind of documentation? Nothing too complicated, just standard verification procedures. New federal regulations around account changes for senior clients. Very routine, but we do have to follow protocol. Thomas smiled blandly. Why don't we schedule a follow-up appointment? Give you time to gather everything. Kevin opened his mouth to argue, but Thomas was already standing, extending his hand toward me. Mrs. Peterson, it's truly a pleasure. How have you been? I was just telling my wife the other day that Emily still talks about your calculus classes. She says, you're the reason she became an engineer. She was a wonderful student, I said, one of my best. She had a natural gift for seeing patterns. Please give her my regards. I certainly will. We shook hands. His grip was firm, steady, and in that brief moment, his thumb pressed against my palm. Once, twice, a signal, a promise. I wasn't alone in this. The drive home was silent. Kevin gripped the steering wheel with white knuckles, his jaw still tight, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. He was angry, I could tell. The kind of cold, controlled anger that simmers beneath the surface. "That's ridiculous," he muttered. "Additional documentation. What is this?" "The FBI. It's a simple account change. People do it every day. Mom does this all the time." I said nothing, just watched him, cataloged his reactions, filed them away in my memory, the memory he claimed was failing. "The banking system in this country," he continued, shaking his head. "Red tape for everything. Can't do anything without 16 forms and 3 witnesses." Still, I said nothing. "Don't worry about it, Mom." He forced his voice to soften, changed tactics. "I'll handle everything. I'll call them tomorrow. Get this sorted out. You don't need to stress about bank stuff." "All right, dear." He pulled into my driveway, the house where I'd lived for 42 years. The house Harold built with his own hands before we were married. He'd designed it himself, drawn up the blueprints on our kitchen table in the apartment we shared. Every room exactly where I wanted it. Every window placed to catch the morning light. The house where we raised Kevin and his sister Linda, where we celebrated birthdays and Christmases and graduations, where we weathered illnesses and disappointments and losses, where Harold took his last breath 5 years ago, holding my hand, telling me he loved me. This house was more than a building. It was 52 years of marriage made solid. Every wall held memories. Kevin helped me inside, helped me like I was fragile, like I might shatter if handled too roughly. He held my elbow as we walked up the 3 steps to the porch, steps I'd climbed 10,000 times without incident. He kissed my forehead. "Get some rest, Mom. I'll check in on you tomorrow." After his car disappeared down the street, I stood in my kitchen for a long moment, the same kitchen where I'd graded papers for 4 decades, red pen in hand, coffee, growing cold, beside me, where I'd helped Kevin with his homework when he was young and actually wanted my help, where I'd made breakfast for Harold every single morning, even when we were both exhausted, even when life was hard. I walked to my address book, the same one I'd kept since 1979, leather-bound, organized alphabetically, found Thomas Hendricks's home number. I'd had it memorized since 1987 when Emily was failing trigonometry, and I'd called to reassure her parents that their daughter would be fine. I didn't call. Not yet. First, I needed to understand exactly what my son had been doing behind my back. The next morning, I woke early. Old habits from 41 years of 6 a.m. alarms don't die easily. Even in retirement, my body still thinks it needs to be at Jefferson High by 7:15 for first period. I made coffee, strong, the way Harold used to like it. Sat at my kitchen table with my hands wrapped around the warm mug and began to think. Kevin had started visiting more frequently after Harold died. At first, I'd been grateful. Losing your husband of 52 years leaves a hole in your life that nothing quite fills. The silence of the house in the morning, the empty chair at dinner, the cold spot in the bed where warmth used to be, having Kevin stop by, having someone to talk to, someone who remembered Harold, someone who shared my grief. It had seemed like a blessing. Then the comments started. Small things at first, easy to dismiss. "Mom, you already told me that story." But I hadn't. I knew I hadn't, because I keep track, always have. Harold used to joke that I had a mind like a filing cabinet, everything in its place. "You left the stove on again," but I turned it off myself. I remembered turning it off because I always say stove off out loud when I do it. A habit from teaching, always verbalizing steps so students could follow along. You forgot your doctor's appointment, but it was scheduled for the following week. I had it written on the calendar. I showed him the calendar. He said, "Mom, you must have written the wrong date." That was the first time I doubted myself. "Mom, are you sure you should be driving? Maybe I should take your car keys, just for a while, just to be safe." I'd let him take the keys. That was 3 months ago. I'd been walking to the grocery store ever since, telling myself it was good exercise, telling myself Kevin was just being protective, telling myself all the things you tell yourself when you don't want to believe something terrible about someone you love. At Thanksgiving last year, his wife Brenda had found me alone in the kitchen while I was making pie crust. She'd put her hand on my arm with that particular gentleness people reserve for the very old or the very sick. "We're just worried about you, Mom." Her voice was sweet, concerned, dripping with sympathy. "Kevin says you've been forgetting things." I'd looked at her, this woman I'd known for 23 years. This woman who'd married my son and given me 2 beautiful grandchildren. This woman who'd always seemed kind, seemed genuine. "I haven't been forgetting anything, Brenda." She'd smiled, that patient, patronizing smile, the smile you give to someone who doesn't know they're slipping away. "Of course, Mom, of course." That night, I'd started doubting myself more seriously, started writing everything down in a notebook, every conversation, every task completed, every appointment kept, started second-guessing every word out of my mouth, every action, every decision. Was I forgetting things? Was I getting confused? Was I losing the mind that had been my greatest tool for 41 years? That's when I noticed the other notebook, Kevin's notebook. It was 3 months ago. Kevin had left his briefcase at my house after one of his visits, a nice leather briefcase, expensive. The kind you carry when you want people to know you're successful. I was looking for a pen. His briefcase was sitting on my kitchen counter. I unzipped the front pocket without thinking about it. I found something else, a small black notebook, leather-bound, expensive. The cover was labeled in Kevin's neat handwriting, "Mom, Health Observations." I should have put it back, should have pretended I never saw it, should have respected my son's privacy. But 41 years of teaching had given me a healthy disrespect for ignorance. Knowledge is power. That's what I always told my students. The only thing worse than a hard truth is a comfortable lie. I opened the notebook, 8 months of entries, dated, detailed, written in Kevin's precise accountant's hand. March 15th, Mom repeated story about Dad's fishing trip. 3rd time this month. Classic sign of short-term memory loss. I remembered that story. I'd told it once, at Easter dinner, when Kevin asked about the mounted base in my living room. Once. March 22nd, found expired milk in refrigerator. Doesn't notice spoiled food. Deteriorating judgment. The milk had been purchased the day before. Kevin had moved it behind other containers so I wouldn't see it. Then, discovered it during his visit. April 3rd, Mom called me Harold for a moment before correcting herself. Confusion between husband and son, common in early dementia patients. I had not called him Harold. I had said, "Harold used to sit in that chair." Kevin had deliberately misunderstood me. April 18th, Mom couldn't find her glasses. They were on her head. Classic early stage symptom. My glasses were on the counter where I always leave them. Kevin had picked them up, put them on my head while I was reading the newspaper, then asked me where they were. May 2nd. Mom forgot what day it was when I called. Had to check her calendar. Temporal disorientation progressing. He'd called me at 6 a.m., waking me from a dead sleep, and asked what day it was. Anyone would be confused. May 15th. Noticed Mom's checkbook entries becoming harder to read. Fine motor control declining. My handwriting has always been small. It hasn't changed in 40 years. June 8th. Mom made coffee, but forgot to drink it. Found cold cup on counter. Executive function impairment. I'd been interrupted by a phone call. The coffee got cold. This happens to everyone. Page after page after page. Every normal moment of human forgetfulness, twisted into evidence of disease. Every slip of the tongue, documented as cognitive decline. Every time I set something down and couldn't immediately remember where, recorded as proof that I was losing my mind. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time after reading that notebook. My hands were shaking, not from dementia, from rage. I thought about confronting him, thought about throwing that notebook in his face and demanding an explanation, thought about screaming at him until my throat was raw. But I'd taught mathematics for 41 years. I knew how to solve problems. You don't solve a problem by reacting emotionally. You solve it by gathering information, identifying patterns, understanding the full scope of what you're facing. And this problem required more than emotional reaction. It required proof. It required strategy. It required patience. So I put the notebook back in his briefcase, zipped it closed, said nothing when he picked it up the next day, apologizing for leaving it. Getting forgetful myself, Mom, he said with a laugh. I laughed too, played along, started paying very close attention. Before I tell you what happened next, I need to tell you what Kevin was really after, because this wasn't about me. This was never about me. Harold Peterson was a careful man. He'd worked as a structural engineer for 40 years, building bridges and office towers across the Southeast. He understood foundations. He understood stress loads and weight distribution and what it took to make something last. When he died in 2019, he left me secure, not wealthy by modern standards, but comfortable, protected. Our house, paid off since 1998, now worth about $485,000 on the Atlanta market. Location matters. Good schools. Nice neighborhood. The kind of place young families are willing to pay premium prices for. My teacher's pension, $4,200 a month, every month for the rest of my life. 41 years of service, full benefits. Our savings account, $340,000 accumulated over decades of careful living. Teacher salaries and engineer salaries. No extravagance, no waste, just steady, patient saving, and the investment account Harold had set up in 1995. He'd called it our grandchildren's college fund. He'd put $200 into it every month, like clockwork, for 24 years. By the time he died, compound interest had grown it to $890,000. Total estate, approximately $1.7 million. I knew Kevin was aware of these numbers. He'd asked about them at Harold's funeral, sat me down the day after we buried his father, and asked very gently about my financial situation. At the time, I thought he was concerned about my security, making sure his mother would be okay. Now I understood differently. Kevin was 51 years old. He'd worked as an accountant for a mid-sized firm downtown for 25 years. Good salary, comfortable life, but nothing spectacular. His wife, Brenda, didn't work. His 2 children were in college, expensive colleges, the kind that cost $50,000 a year, $100,000 annually for 4 years each, and Kevin's firm had been struggling. I'd heard him mention it at Christmas, though he'd tried to sound casual about it. Something about losing clients, partners leaving, uncertain futures. I'd done the math. Mathematicians always do the math. $1.7 million. That's what my life's work was worth on paper. 41 years of teaching, plus 52 years of Harold's engineering. A lifetime of early mornings and late nights. A lifetime of grading papers at the kitchen table while Harold worked on blueprints in his study. A lifetime of love and sacrifice and careful planning. And Kevin wanted it all. The phone rang at 9:15 the next morning. I knew it would be Thomas before I answered. "Mrs. Peterson, this is Thomas Hendricks from First National. I hope I'm not disturbing you." "Thomas, I've been expecting your call." There was a pause, then a soft laugh. "You always were 3 steps ahead, Mrs. Peterson. Emily still talks about how you taught her to think that way." "How is Emily?" "Wonderful. Just got a promotion last month. Senior engineer now. She's designing wing components for the new narrow-body jets." I could hear the pride in his voice. "She credits you, you know. Says you taught her that numbers don't lie. You just have to know how to read them." I smiled despite everything. Some victories stay sweet no matter what else is happening. "Mrs. Peterson, I think you should come to the bank today, alone if possible. There are some things you need to see." "What things, Thomas?" A pause. "Things your son doesn't want you to know about." I drove myself to the bank. "I know what you're thinking. Didn't Kevin take her keys?" "Yes, he did. But I had a spare set Harold had made 30 years ago, hidden in a coffee can in the garage behind the paint cans. Some things a woman keeps to herself. I parked in the same spot I'd used for 40 years when depositing my teacher paychecks. 3rd row, left side, near the handicapped spaces. Muscle memory. Walked into the lobby. Thomas was waiting near the entrance, pretending to review some papers. "Mrs. Peterson." He took my arm gently, not the way Kevin did. Not like I was fragile and might fall. More like an escort, like a gentleman showing respect to a lady. "Please, come to my office." His office was small, comfortable, professional. Family photos on the desk. Emily's engineering degree framed on the wall. He closed the door behind us, pulled out a file folder. "What I'm about to show you could cost me my job if your son finds out." He met my eyes directly. No pretense, no softening. But Emily would never forgive me if I stayed silent. And frankly, neither would I. He opened the file. "Your son has made 3 previous attempts to access your accounts, all without your knowledge, all claiming you were incapacitated. 3 attempts. 3 times Kevin had come to this bank, tried to get access to my money, and lied about my mental state." Thomas laid out the records one by one, like cards in a hand I hadn't known was being played. August 12th, 2024, your son visited the bank alone. He requested to be added to your checking account as a joint holder, claimed he had your verbal permission, that you were too confused to come in person, said you'd been having episodes. The teller denied the request. Account holder must be present for that kind of change. I stared at the date. August. The same month Kevin had started his symptom diary. Not a coincidence. October 3rd, 2024. Your son called our customer service line. He asked about power of attorney procedures, how to get authority over an elderly parent's accounts. He mentioned that his mother had early cognitive decline and couldn't manage her own finances. Our representative explained he would need legal documentation, specifically medical evidence of incapacity, power of attorney. He'd been researching how to take legal control of everything I owned. November 28th, 2024. Your son submitted a formal written request to be listed as authorized representative on your investment account, the one with $890,000. He attached a note claiming you had significant cognitive decline and were unable to make sound financial decisions. Our fraud detection system flagged the request. It was denied and documented. Thomas closed the file. 3 attempts in 4 months, Mrs. Peterson. Each time, he was alone. Each time, he claimed you couldn't make decisions for yourself. I sat very still. My hands were folded in my lap. They weren't shaking. Not anymore. There's more, Thomas said quietly. I pulled your account records going back 6 months. Someone has been reviewing your balances online, logging in with your credentials, but the IP address doesn't match your home computer. Kevin had my passwords. Kevin had been monitoring my money. How did he get my login information? That I don't know. Maybe he watched you type them once. Maybe he guessed based on information he knew. Maybe... Thomas hesitated. Maybe you told him yourself, back when you still trusted him. That last suggestion hurt the most, because it was probably true. Mrs. Peterson, I've been in banking for 30 years. I've seen this pattern before, more times than I want to count. Someone is building a case, documenting evidence, preparing to take control. I thought of the notebook, 8 months of fabricated symptoms. He's going to file for conservatorship, I said. It wasn't a question. That would be my guess. And once he has legal authority over your finances, everything I have becomes his to manage, or mismanage, or spend, or transfer to himself. Silence stretched between us. Outside the window, I could see the bank lobby, normal people doing normal business, deposits and withdrawals, the ordinary machinery of financial life. None of them knew that my son was trying to steal my life. Thomas slid a business card across the desk. Margaret Chen, elder law attorney. She specializes in cases exactly like this. I've referred 3 other clients to her in the past 2 years. All of them were being exploited by family members. All of them are now protected. I took the card, looked at it, simple white cardstock, black lettering, a phone number that could change everything. Why are you risking your job for this, Thomas? He was quiet for a moment. Then he leaned back in his chair. In 1993, my daughter was failing trigonometry. Not just failing, drowning. She was going to lose her scholarship to state. Our family couldn't afford to send her without that money. My wife was crying every night. Emily was talking about giving up, getting a job, forgetting about college. He met my eyes. You tutored her every Tuesday and Thursday for 3 months. Wouldn't take a single penny when I offered to pay you. You told her that numbers tell the truth. You just have to know how to read them. He gestured toward the records spread across his desk. I know how to read these numbers, Mrs. Peterson. And they're telling me your son is trying to steal everything you have. Margaret Chen's office was downtown in one of those glass towers that had sprouted up along Peachtree Street in the last decade. I took an Uber. Didn't want Kevin to know I'd gotten my spare keys. Didn't want him to know I was doing anything at all. The office was on the 14th floor. Small but efficient. Books on elder law lined the shelves. Framed certificates covered the walls. Margaret Chen herself was about 55, with sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and the kind of posture that suggested she didn't suffer fools gladly. "Mrs. Peterson, please, sit down." Thomas Hendricks called ahead. "He said you'd be coming." I sat. She sat across from me, pulled out a legal pad. "Tell me everything. Start from the beginning. Don't leave anything out. Leave anything out." So I did. I told her about Harold's death, about Kevin's increasing visits, about the slow voice and the loud words and the constant subtle suggestions that I was losing my mind. I told her about the notebook with its fabricated symptoms, about the bank attempts Thomas had discovered, about the password theft and the account monitoring. Margaret took notes throughout. Her pen moved steadily across the paper. She didn't interrupt, didn't ask clarifying questions. Just let me tell the whole story in my own words. When I finished, she set the pen down and looked at me directly. "Mrs. Peterson, your son is following a textbook pattern for conservatorship fraud." Textbook? I see cases like this every month, sometimes every week. The symptom diary, the isolation from family and friends, the financial monitoring, the slow patient building of a case to convince a judge that the target is incapacitated. She leaned forward. "He's not doing this because he thinks you're sick, Mrs. Peterson. He's doing this because he wants your money. And the conservatorship system, unfortunately, can be exploited by people who are willing to lie. What can I do? Several things. First, we establish a paper trail that proves your competency. I'm going to refer you to a neuropsychologist for a full cognitive evaluation, not a doctor your son recommended. An independent professional who will conduct rigorous testing and provide documentation of your mental state." She made a note. "Second, we need to restructure your finances. Create protective mechanisms that will make it much harder for anyone to take control, even with a conservatorship order." "What kind of mechanisms?" "A trust primarily. We'll transfer your assets into a trust that you control. The trust documents will require multiple independent medical evaluations before any change of control can happen. 3 doctors, chosen by a neutral third party, all agreeing that you lack capacity. That's a much higher bar than what Kevin is currently trying to clear." She made another note. "We'll also update your power of attorney to name someone other than Kevin, and we'll create a healthcare directive that explicitly excludes him from medical decision-making." I nodded slowly, taking it all in. "Third," Margaret continued, "we prepare for the fight that's coming, because make no mistake, Mrs. Peterson, when Kevin realizes he can't access your money, he's going to file that conservatorship petition. He's invested too much time to walk away now, and we need to be ready to destroy his case in court." 1 week later, I sat in the office of Dr. Rebecca Osei, a board-certified neuropsychologist with 30 years of experience and absolutely no connection to Kevin or anyone else in my family. The testing took 3 hours, memory assessments, reasoning evaluations, mathematical calculations, executive function measurements, pattern recognition, verbal fluency, attention span, processing speed, everything designed to produce an objective, clinical picture of cognitive health. It was exhausting, it was rigorous, and it was exactly what I needed. When it was over, Dr. Osei reviewed the results with me. Mrs. Peterson, you scored in the 94th percentile for your age group, meaning that out of 100 people your age taking this test, you performed better than 94 of them. She looked at me over the top of her glasses. Your memory is exceptional. Your reasoning is intact. Your mathematical abilities are significantly above average. There are no signs of cognitive decline whatsoever. She slid the report across her desk. Whoever told you that you have dementia was either mistaken or lying. I took the report. 32 pages of clinical documentation proving that I was exactly who I'd always been. That night, I sat at my kitchen table and read every page, every score, every observation, every clinical note. Patient demonstrates exceptional verbal fluency with no hesitation or word-finding difficulties. Mathematical calculation abilities remain at superior level, consistent with reported professional background. Memory testing reveals strong encoding, storage, and retrieval functions across all domains. Executive function assessment indicates intact planning, organization, and cognitive flexibility. No evidence of cognitive decline. Test results are inconsistent with any dementing process. I cried, not from sadness, from relief, from vindication, from the profound, overwhelming comfort of having my own reality confirmed by someone with the credentials to make it official. I'd known I wasn't losing my mind, but Kevin had been so patient, so persistent, so convincing. He'd made me doubt myself in the quiet hours of the night. He'd planted seeds of uncertainty that had taken root despite my best efforts to pull them out. Now I had proof, documentation, evidence that my mind was exactly as sharp as it had always been. The next morning, I called Linda. The test results came back, I told her. 94th percentile, no cognitive decline. Mom, her voice broke. I knew it. I knew he was lying. I knew you were fine. I know, sweetheart, but now we can prove it. Margaret Chen moved quickly after that. First, the trust, a revocable living trust with all my assets transferred into it. The trust named me as the sole trustee while I was alive and competent. If anyone challenged my competency, the trust documents required 3 independent medical evaluations from physicians chosen by a neutral third party. 3, not 1, not 2. 3, second, a new power of attorney. The old document, created decades ago when Harold was still alive, had named Kevin as my agent. The new one named Margaret Chen herself. Third, a healthcare directive. If I became truly incapacitated, medical decisions would be made by my daughter Linda, who lived in Seattle. Linda and Kevin had never been close. She wouldn't be manipulated the way Kevin hoped to manipulate the system. Fourth, a formal letter to every financial institution where I had accounts. First National Bank, my investment firm, my pension administrator. All of them received official notice that Kevin Peterson was not authorized to access any account, request any information, or conduct any business on my behalf. The final step was the hardest. I called Linda. My daughter lived in Seattle, had for 20 years. She'd moved out there after college, married a software engineer named David, built a life on the other side of the country. Good job, nice house, 2 children of her own now. We talked every Sunday evening, 7 p.m. my time, 4 p.m. hers, but I hadn't seen her in person since Harold's funeral. Mom, is everything okay? I need to tell you something about your brother. There was a long silence. The kind of silence that meant she already knew something was wrong, had known for a while maybe, had just been waiting for someone else to say it first. I've been worried, Mom. Worried. The way he talks about you when I call him, the way he describes things to Brenda, like you're not all there, like you're fading. She paused. I didn't want to believe it, but something felt wrong. The way he kept saying you were confused. But whenever I talk to you directly, you seem fine. Better than fine. Can you come home, Linda? Soon? I'm booking a flight right now. Meanwhile, Kevin kept visiting every Sunday, kept bringing groceries I didn't ask for, kept speaking slowly and loudly, kept watching me with that patient, calculating expression that I now recognized for what it was. Hunger. He didn't know about the cognitive evaluation. Didn't know about the trust. Didn't know about Margaret Chen. He thought time was on his side. He thought I was getting worse. He thought his careful documentation would eventually pay off. At dinner one Sunday, he said casually, Mom, I've been talking to a lawyer about your future, about making sure you're protected. I kept my face neutral. 41 years of dealing with teenagers had taught me how to hide my reactions. You don't let them see they've gotten to you. You stay calm. You stay in control. What kind of protection? Just arrangements, legal stuff, in case you need help managing things later. He smiled that sincere, concerned smile. It's called conservatorship. Totally routine for someone your age. Nothing to worry about. I set down my fork. That's very thoughtful, Kevin. He patted my hand. His touch made my skin crawl. I'm just looking out for you, Mom. That's what family does. 3 weeks later, the summons arrived. In the matter of Dorothy Marie Peterson, proposed conservatee petition for appointment of conservator of the person and estate Kevin had filed. The petition claimed I showed progressive cognitive decline, was unable to manage financial affairs, and required protection from exploitation by third parties. Attached, the notebook. 8 months of documented symptoms, now transcribed into legal exhibit format. Formatted, organized, professional looking. Also attached, a letter from Dr. Marcus Webb, a physician I had never met, stating he had concerns about Mrs. Peterson's capacity based on observations reported by family members, a doctor who had never examined me, a diagnosis based on Kevin's lies. I called Margaret immediately. We expected this, she said calmly. Don't panic. This is exactly what we prepared for. He has a doctor's letter, a doctor who never even saw me, and we have Dr. Osi's full neuropsychological evaluation showing you're in the 94th percentile. His doctor wrote a letter based on hearsay. Our doctor conducted 3 hours of clinical testing with validated instruments and detailed documentation. She paused. He's going to lose Mrs. Peterson. He just doesn't know it yet. The hearing was set for 30 days out. Kevin came to my house the day after the summons arrived. His face was grave, concerned, the perfect picture of a worried son doing a difficult but necessary thing. Mom, I know this seems scary, but it's for your own good. You've been struggling, and I just want to make sure you're taken care of. I'm not struggling, Kevin. See, that's what I mean. His voice dropped, patient, pitying. You don't even realize how bad it's gotten. That's part of the disease. You can't see what's happening to yourself. Disease. He said it like it was a fact, like I was already diagnosed by a real doctor who had actually examined me. I think you should move in with Brenda and me, just until this legal stuff is sorted out. You shouldn't be alone. No. Mom, I said no, Kevin. His face hardened for just a moment. I saw it, the flash of anger behind the mask, the frustration of a man whose plan wasn't going smoothly. Then the mask reassembled itself. We'll talk about it later, when you're feeling more yourself. After he left, I sat in my kitchen and thought about all the years I'd spent loving this man, raising him, teaching him, believing in him. The next 2 weeks were a siege. Kevin called my neighbors, both of them. The Hendersons on the left and the Patels on the right, expressed concern about me living alone, asked if anyone had noticed confusion or memory problems or unusual behavior. Mrs. Henderson told me about it the next day. Dorothy, I don't know what your son is up to, but something isn't right. You're the sharpest person on this street. He contacted my church, spoke with Pastor Williams about whether congregants had observed changes in my behavior. Pastor Williams, bless him, told Kevin that he'd known me for 30 years, and I seemed exactly the same as always. He called my doctor's office, the one I'd used for 20 years, and tried to access my medical records. HIPAA blocked him, thank God. Federal privacy law has its uses. He visited the bank again, was informed that I had explicitly revoked any authorization for him. That last one made him furious. He called me that night, his voice tight with controlled rage. Why would you do that, Mom? Why would you cut me off from helping you? I don't need that kind of help, Kevin. You're sick, Mom. You're making bad decisions because you're sick. That's exactly why we need this conservatorship. You can't see clearly anymore. You're being manipulated by people who want your money. The irony was thick enough to choke on. Goodbye, Kevin. I hung up. My hand was shaking, but my mind was clear. Before I tell you what happened in the courtroom, I need you to understand something. Comment below if you've ever had to defend yourself against someone who was supposed to love you. I want to know you're with me, because this next part matters. 2 days before the hearing, I sat alone in my kitchen at 3 a.m. Sleep wouldn't come. The house was too quiet, too empty. I thought about Harold, about the life we'd built together, about the way he'd held my hand every night when we watched television, about the last words he'd said to me before he died. You're the sharpest person I know, Dot. Don't you ever let anyone tell you different. The doubt crept in anyway. It always does in the small hours of the night. What if I am losing my mind? What if I just can't see it? What if Kevin is right? I looked at my hands, spotted with age, trembling slightly. Maybe I should just let him handle things. Maybe it would be easier. The thought lasted about 30 seconds. Then I pulled out Dr. Osei's report. Read it again. 94th percentile cognitive function for age group. No signs of cognitive decline. One of the sharpest minds I've tested this year. I set down the report. I wasn't losing my mind. My son was trying to steal it. Superior Court, Department 12. Judge Patricia Wellborn presiding. The gallery was fuller than I expected. Thomas Hendricks sat in the back row. He'd taken the morning off work to be there. Linda had flown in from Seattle 3 days earlier and hadn't left my side since. 3 of my former colleagues from Jefferson High were there, women I'd taught alongside for decades, Barbara, Patricia, and June. We'd graded papers together, complained about administrators together, celebrated student successes together, and Emily Hendricks, Thomas's daughter, the engineer at Boeing. She'd driven 8 hours from her home in Alabama just to be there, just to support the teacher who'd saved her future 30 years ago. Kevin sat at the petitioner's table with his attorney, a slick young man named Bradley Moss in an expensive suit. Kevin wore dark colors, conservative, responsible-looking. His face projected nothing but concern for his elderly mother. I sat beside Margaret Chen at the respondent's table. I wore a blue dress, the same one I'd worn to my retirement ceremony at Jefferson High. My back was straight. My hands were steady. Judge Wellborn entered. We all stood. She sat. We sat. She was about 60, with silver hair and reading glasses perched on her nose. Her expression was neutral, professional. She'd probably seen 1,000 cases like this, 1,000 families tearing themselves apart over money and power and control. In the matter of Dorothy Marie Peterson, proposed conservatee, she said, opening the file before her. Mr. Moss, you may present your petition. Bradley Moss stood, adjusted his tie, walked to the center of the courtroom with the easy confidence of someone used to winning. Your Honor, this is a straightforward case of a loving son trying to protect his elderly mother from herself and from those who would exploit her. He gestured toward me. Dorothy Peterson is 77 years old. She lives alone in a house that's far too large for her. Her husband passed away 5 years ago. For the past year, her only son, Kevin, has observed a troubling pattern of cognitive decline. He picked up a stack of papers. We have documented 8 months of symptoms: memory loss, confusion, disorientation, inability to manage daily tasks. Mrs. Peterson has left her stove on multiple times. She has forgotten important appointments. She has confused her deceased husband with her living son. She cannot recall conversations that happened just days earlier. He set down the papers. Additionally, we have a letter from Dr. Marcus Webb, a licensed physician, expressing concern about Mrs. Peterson's capacity based on observations reported by family members. He turned to the judge. Your Honor, this is not about control. This is not about money. This is about protection. Mrs. Peterson is a danger to herself. Without proper oversight, she will be exploited by those who wish to take advantage of her diminished capacity. We are asking this court to appoint Kevin Peterson as conservator of her person and estate so that he can ensure his mother's safety and well-being. Kevin took the stand next. His voice cracked with manufactured emotion. I love my mother, Your Honor. Watching her decline has been the hardest thing I've ever done. She was always so sharp, so brilliant, the best math teacher in the county. Everyone said so. To see her struggle to remember simple things, to watch her get confused about what day it is, what year it is, it breaks my heart. He wiped his eyes with a handkerchief. I almost believed him myself. I don't want to take away her independence. That's the last thing I want. I just want to make sure she's protected, that someone is watching out for her when she can't watch out for herself. That's all any son would want. When he was finished, Margaret Chen rose slowly from her chair. Mr. Peterson, you claim to have observed your mother's symptoms over 8 months. Is that correct? Yes. And you kept a detailed notebook documenting these observations? I wanted to be thorough for the doctors so they could see the pattern. For the doctors. Margaret paused. Mr. Peterson, who is Dr. Marcus Webb? He's a physician. He evaluated my mother's condition. Did your mother ever meet Dr. Marcus Webb? Kevin hesitated, just for a moment. Just long enough for everyone in the courtroom to notice. Not formally, but I provided him with my observations and based on the pattern of symptoms. So Dr. Webb diagnosed your mother with cognitive decline without ever examining her, without ever speaking to her, without running a single test, based on the pattern of symptoms. The pattern you documented in your notebook without any independent verification. Silence in the courtroom. Mr. Peterson, have you ever attempted to access your mother's bank accounts without her knowledge or permission? Kevin's face went pale. I don't know what you mean. Let me be more specific. Margaret picked up a file. On August 12, 2024, did you visit First National Bank and request to be added to your mother's checking account while claiming she was too confused to come in person? I was trying to help. Yes or no, Mr. Peterson? Yes, but on October 3rd, 2024, did you call the bank's customer service line and ask about power of attorney procedures, claiming your mother had early cognitive decline? I was gathering information. Yes or no? Yes. On November 28, 2024, did you submit a written request to be listed as authorized representative on your mother's investment account, the one containing $890,000, attaching a note claiming she had significant cognitive decline? Kevin's attorney started to object. The judge silenced him with a look. Yes, Kevin said quietly. So, you made 3 separate attempts to access your mother's finances over 4 months, each time falsely claiming she was incapacitated, each time without her knowledge or consent. Is that correct? I was trying to protect her. 3 attempts, 3 lies about her mental state. Is that correct, Mr. Peterson? Silence. Yes. Margaret turned to the judge. Your Honor, I'd like to submit evidence showing a very different pattern than what the petitioner has described. She presented the documents one by one, laying them before the judge like a prosecutor presenting evidence of a crime, because that's exactly what this was. Exhibit A, a complete neuropsychological evaluation conducted by Dr. Rebecca Osei, board-certified neuropsychologist with 30 years of experience, Mrs. Peterson underwent 3 hours of rigorous cognitive testing 2 weeks ago. The results show her functioning in the 94th percentile for her age group. No signs of cognitive decline. She said it before the judge. Exhibit B, bank records showing 3 separate attempts by Kevin Peterson to access his mother's accounts. In each case, he falsely claimed she was incapacitated. In each case, the bank denied the request and documented the attempt. Another document on the pile. Exhibit C, computer records showing that someone accessed Mrs. Peterson's financial accounts from Kevin Peterson's home IP address, using her passwords without her knowledge or authorization. Unauthorized access. Account monitoring without consent. Exhibit D, affidavits from 5 former colleagues who have known Mrs. Peterson for decades, all confirming her continued mental sharpness and cognitive clarity. Exhibit E, a sworn statement from Thomas Hendricks, senior manager at First National Bank, documenting Kevin Peterson's exact words at the most recent bank visit My mother has dementia. The courtroom was completely silent. Your Honor, Margaret continued, I called Thomas Hendricks to the stand. Thomas walked forward, took the oath, sat in the witness chair. His face was calm, professional, a banker used to delivering difficult news. Mr. Hendricks, how long have you known Dorothy Peterson? 30 years, ma'am. She taught all 3 of my children at Jefferson High School. My daughter Emily had the most contact with her. Emily was failing trigonometry, and Mrs. Peterson tutored her for months, saved her scholarship. And in those 30 years, have you ever observed any signs of cognitive decline in Mrs. Peterson? No, ma'am, not once. Mrs. Peterson has one of the finest minds I've ever encountered. When her son came to my bank claiming she had dementia, I knew immediately something was wrong. What do you mean? Thomas looked at Kevin directly. I recognized what he was doing. I've been in banking for 30 years. I've seen this pattern before, more times than I want to count. Family members who want access to an elderly person's money. They start by claiming the person is confused. They build a case slowly, over months. They isolate the victim from anyone who might help. They document symptoms that don't exist. They're very patient, very thorough, very convincing. He turned to the judge. Mrs. Peterson taught my daughter Emily when she was 16 and failing. Emily is now a senior engineer at Boeing. She designs wing components for commercial aircraft. She saves lives with her work. Mrs. Peterson made that possible. That kind of teaching requires a sharp mind, a clear mind, a present mind. The woman I know is not the woman her son described. Margaret called one more witness, Emily Hendricks, aerospace engineer. Calm, precise, professional. Everything you'd expect from someone who designs aircraft components that carry thousands of people through the sky every day. Miss Hendricks, you were a student of Mrs. Peterson's? Yes, ma'am. In 1993, trigonometry, advanced mathematics. Can you tell the court about your experience with her? Emily looked at me, smiled slightly, the smile of a woman who remembered being 16 and scared, remembered being helped, remembered what that help had made possible. Mrs. Peterson saved my academic career. I was failing trigonometry, not just struggling, failing. I was going to lose my scholarship to Georgia State. My family couldn't afford college without that money. My mom was crying every night. I was ready to give up. She paused. Mrs. Peterson tutored me every Tuesday and Thursday for 3 months. She never took a penny. She wouldn't let my parents pay her. She said, teachers help students. That's what teachers do. Emily's voice strengthened. She taught me that numbers don't lie. You just have to know how to read them. She taught me to see patterns where I'd seen only chaos. She taught me to trust my own mind. She turned to look at Kevin. This man's story doesn't add up. The woman who taught me 30 years ago is the same woman sitting in this courtroom right now. Sharp, alert, present. I talked to her last week. We discussed differential equations for 20 minutes. She remembered every formula. I would trust her with complex engineering calculations today, tomorrow, any day. Margaret made her final argument. Your Honor, what we have here is not a case of a loving son protecting his elderly mother. It's a case of calculated financial exploitation. Kevin Peterson spent 8 months fabricating evidence. He documented normal moments of human behavior and twisted them into symptoms of disease. He obtained a fraudulent medical opinion from a doctor who never examined the patient. He made multiple attempts to access nearly $1.7 million in assets by claiming his mother couldn't manage them herself. This is elder abuse. This is financial exploitation. This is fraud. Dorothy Peterson is not incompetent. She's the victim of her own son's greed. Judge Wellborn was silent for a long moment. She looked at the evidence spread before her. She looked at Kevin, sitting at the petitioner's table. She looked at me. Then she spoke. This court has seen many conservatorship cases. Most are legitimate efforts by loving families to protect vulnerable adults. This is not one of them. She turned to Kevin. Mr. Peterson, the evidence before me suggests a deliberate, sustained campaign to defraud your mother of her autonomy and her assets. You fabricated symptoms. You sought medical opinions without examination. You attempted to access accounts through deception. You monitored her finances without authorization. She straightened the papers before her. The petition for conservatorship is denied. Kevin made a sound, something between a gasp and a sob. His attorney put a hand on his shoulder. Furthermore, this court is referring this case to the district attorney's office for investigation of potential elder abuse and financial exploitation charges. Finally, Mrs. Peterson is granted a permanent restraining order against Kevin Peterson. He is prohibited from contacting her, visiting her home, or accessing any of her financial accounts or medical records. Kevin stood, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Mom, his voice cracked. Mom, I was just trying to help. You have to believe me. I love you. I would never. I looked at my son, my only son. I remembered holding him as a baby, marveling at his tiny fingers, teaching him to ride a bike in the driveway, watching him graduate from high school, from college, dancing at his wedding, holding his children when they were born. I remembered the slow voice, the loud words, the dismissals at family dinners, the way he told his wife not to pay attention to me, the notebook full of fabricated symptoms. I believe you, Kevin. He started to smile. I believe you would have taken everything your father and I worked for, everything we saved. You would have locked me away in some facility and called it love. You would have spent our money while telling yourself you deserved it. The smile died. I am not demented. I never was. But I think you lost something far more important than memory. I turned away from him. You lost your mother. 3 months later, the morning after the verdict, I woke up and didn't know what to do with myself. For months, I'd been preparing, documenting, fighting. Every day had a purpose, a direction, a goal. Now the fight was over, and I was standing in my kitchen at 6 a.m., wondering what came next. I made coffee, strong, the way Harold liked it, sat in my usual chair, looked out the window at the garden I'd been neglecting. The tomatoes needed staking, the roses needed pruning, the grass needed cutting, normal things, ordinary things, the kind of things that fill a life when you're not busy defending that life from people who want to take it away. The phone rang at 7:30. I expected it to be Linda checking in. It wasn't. Mrs. Peterson, this is Patricia Williams. I was your colleague at Jefferson High. I was at the hearing yesterday. Patricia, we'd taught together for 22 years. She'd retired 3 years before I did. We still had coffee sometimes when life wasn't too busy. Patricia, thank you for coming. It meant the world to see you there. Dorothy, Her voice was thick with emotion. What you did in that courtroom, the way you stood up for yourself. I need you to know something. What is it? My sister, she's in a similar situation. Her son-in-law has been doing the same thing. The slow comments, the forgetfulness accusations. Last month, he suggested she should sign over her house for safekeeping. She's been doubting herself, wondering if maybe she really is slipping. My chest tightened. How old is your sister? 74, sharp as a whip. Ran her own business for 30 years. Patricia, give me her number. I want to talk to her. That phone call was the first of many. Word got around, the way it does in small communities. The story of the retired math teacher who fought back against her own son. The woman who refused to be erased. Within a month, I talked to a dozen women. Some were in situations like mine. Some were watching loved ones go through it. Some just wanted to know the warning signs, wanted to protect themselves before anything happened. Margaret Chen called me one afternoon. Mrs. Peterson, I've had 4 new clients contact me this week. All of them mentioned your case. All of them said they reached out because of you. I just told my story, Margaret. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes one person standing up gives everyone else permission to stand up too. I sat on my back porch that evening, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and gold, the same view Harold and I had shared for 40 years, the same creaking rocking chair he bought me for our 20th anniversary, the same peace I'd fought so hard to keep. Linda was visiting from Seattle again. She'd been coming more often now. We talked about her moving back to Atlanta, maybe taking a position at one of the tech companies that had set up shop in the suburbs. Nothing decided yet, just possibilities, just hope. The legal situation had resolved itself with surprising speed. The district attorney's office had taken Margaret's evidence and run with it. Kevin faced charges of attempted elder abuse, financial exploitation, and fraud. His attorney had advised him to consider a plea deal. Last I heard, he was negotiating. The restraining order remained in effect. Kevin had tried to call twice. Both calls were logged and reported. His children, my grandchildren, had reached out through Linda. They wanted to understand what had happened. I'd written them a long letter explaining everything, including their father's actions and my decision to protect myself. Whether they would forgive their father was up to them. Whether they would understand their grandmother was also up to them. Some relationships can be repaired. Others are better left as lessons learned. Thomas Hendricks had been promoted to regional manager. His daughter Emily sent me flowers on my birthday with a handwritten note. For the woman who taught me that problems always have solutions. With gratitude, Emily. I'd started tutoring again, twice a week at the community center, working with students who were struggling with mathematics. Some of them reminded me of Emily 30 years ago, smart kids who just needed someone to believe in them, someone to show them that numbers don't lie, someone to teach them to trust their own minds. One evening, Linda sat beside me on the porch. The sunset was particularly beautiful that night. Mom, do you ever... is there any part of you that wants to forgive him? I watched the colors change for a long moment before answering. Forgiveness requires repentance, Linda. Kevin doesn't think he did anything wrong. He thinks he was entitled to what I have. He thinks I'm the one who betrayed him by fighting back. Until he understands what he tried to do, really understands, there's nothing to forgive. What if he never understands? Then he never does. I looked at my daughter. Forgiveness isn't about pretending harm didn't happen. It's about releasing the weight of carrying it. I can release that weight without opening my door to someone who would hurt me again. Linda nodded slowly. I'm glad you're okay, Mom. I'm glad you fought back. I almost didn't. That's the thing, Linda. I almost believed him. He was so convincing, so patient, so thorough. He made me doubt myself, made me doubt my own mind. I reached over and took her hand. If you ever notice something like this happening to someone you love, don't wait. Don't tell yourself it's probably fine. Don't assume family members have good intentions just because they're family. Watch, listen, pay attention. And if something doesn't feel right, trust that feeling. I will, Mom. The trust remained in place, all my assets protected. Upon my death, the estate would be divided according to the documents Margaret had prepared. 50% to Linda and her children, 25% to a scholarship fund at Jefferson High School, the Dorothy and Harold Peterson Mathematics Scholarship, awarded annually to a student who demonstrates exceptional improvement in mathematics, 25% to a nonprofit supporting survivors of financial elder abuse. Kevin's name appeared nowhere in the documents. If this story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button. Share it with someone who needs to hear this message. And comment below, have you ever had to protect yourself from someone who claimed to love you? Tell me your story. I want to hear it. Proverbs 12:22 says, "The Lord detests lying lips, but he delights in those who tell the truth." Kevin built his case on lies. Every entry in that notebook, every word to the banker, every claim to the court, all lies, carefully constructed, patiently assembled, designed to steal everything I had. But truth has a way of surfacing. Numbers don't lie. You just have to know how to read them. If you're listening to this story, I want you to hear something important. Your mind is yours. Your money is yours. Your life is yours. No one, not your child, not your spouse, not anyone, has the right to take them from you through deception. If someone speaks to you slowly, like you're stupid, if someone dismisses your words to others, if someone keeps a symptom diary of your normal human moments, if someone tries to convince you that you can't trust your own memory, if someone takes your car keys, monitors your accounts, tells everyone you're confused, that's not love. That's a trap being built around you. Get a cognitive evaluation from an independent doctor. Talk to a lawyer who specializes in elder law. Tell someone you trust what's happening. The people who want to take everything from you are counting on your silence. They're counting on your shame. They're counting on your love for them. They're counting on you doubting yourself. Don't give them that power. I'm Dorothy Peterson. I taught mathematics for 41 years. I helped hundreds of children learn that numbers tell the truth. The numbers told me the truth about my son, and I refused to let him add me up wrong. Looking back now, I understand something I didn't understand at the beginning. This wasn't really about money. I mean, yes, Kevin wanted the $1.7 million. That was the prize he was chasing. But underneath that, there was something else, something darker. He wanted to erase me, not kill me, nothing so dramatic. He wanted to erase who I was. Wanted to turn Dorothy Peterson, retired mathematics teacher, wife of 52 years, mother, grandmother, independent woman, into Kevin's demented mother. Wanted to reduce me from a person with rights and agency and dignity into a problem to be managed. That's what elder abuse really is. When you strip away the financial calculations, it's erasure. It's telling someone that their own perception of reality can't be trusted. It's convincing them, slowly, that they need to surrender their autonomy because they're no longer capable of handling it themselves. Kevin didn't just want my money, he wanted myself, and I almost let him have it. That's the part that still keeps me awake sometimes. How close I came to believing him. How many times I wondered if maybe he was right. How the constant drip of suggestion and doubt nearly wore through the bedrock of my certainty. If Thomas Hendricks hadn't been there that day in the bank, if I hadn't taught his daughter 30 years ago, if that one small connection hadn't existed, I don't like to think about what might have happened, but I did fight back. I did win. And now I spend my time making sure other women know they can fight back too. Thank you for staying with me until the end. God bless you all.